Hello, it's me, Julie Kim. Welcome to Bothered, my little podcast about being bothered. Every week I share short stories.
Living like this, I might lose it.
They're mostly real situations that have happened to me. You wouldn't believe some of them. Or maybe you would. Maybe you can relate.
Living like this, I might lose it.
It was May in the year 2023, and I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And this particular incident happened in a very fancy and small hotel lounge reserved for members of a certain status or people who had booked hotel rooms at a certain tier of booking. And that day, they had really tasty little mini samosas. Anyways, it was a nice lounge, and I wasn't working that evening, and I was doing a personal phone call with a girlfriend of mine, and I used my AirPods, which I always use because I'm not someone who believes in a speakerphone conversation in public or even at home because it feels like I'm yelling. I'm sitting at a table with a laptop and having probably just, 50 or 60 mini samosa. Again, I love them. And there was a couple many, many tables away, I would say near the other edge of the lounge. And I had noticed as I was talking to my girlfriend that every once in a while they would turn around. And then at one point, they both turned around, an old Caucasian man and his lady partner, who actually seemed to be an Asian lady. They both at some point turned around and looked at me, and she just goes, shh, like that. And he shushed me also, but he did this, shh, shh, doing like a chicken head and just shushing me, which I immediately got my back up about, just because it's like so condescending and not appropriate. So all I said in a very, very calm and cool way, I just said, never do that to me. He was like, oh, so he got up and he walked promptly over to the concierge desk. There's someone who mans the entry of the lounge. And then he brought the concierge back to sort of where I was at my table and started gesturing to me and speaking with this man who was the concierge. And at one point, I heard him actually say, I shouldn't be able to hear her. And then I also heard at some point after that, the concierge saying, actually, she's fine. Like what she's doing is okay. And then the man kept having a conversation with the concierge and kept gesturing, and they went back and forth a little bit. So then the man goes back to his table. I'm just on the phone still. By this time, my phone conversation is solely about what is going on in the lounge because I couldn't not pay attention to it. I continue to be on the phone. This man goes back to his table where his partner is. And there was another couple that was seated behind them. And I remember seeing he and his partner talking to them and probably talking about me. I don't even think I'm being paranoid, but probably just like talking about what happened. So he starts telling them something, and then I could not resist. I go, shh. It was very loud, and they all turned around. And so the man sat down with his partner, and it was not any more than 5 minutes before they decided to get up and leave. They didn't really look at me as they left. What they did do is stop at the concierge on their way out, and the man had another little conversation with the concierge where he pointed back to me again, and then he made these kinds of gestures with his hands in the air as if he's very harmless. And I watched as he sort of tried to graciously back out of the conversation, and he did a little twirl, and he sort of went up on his toes and did a 360 twirl as he took his mug of tea and went to the elevator and then went down the elevator with his partner. The concierge came up to me and said, I'm sorry. He apologized to me, and he said that the old man was wrong, and that on his way out, the old man apologized to him, the concierge, for being a grumpy old man, and then he made light of his own behavior, and then he left. He didn't come up to me to apologize for trying to get me to shush when he realized that was a wrong thing to do. He apologized to the male concierge that worked at the hotel, and then he left. And that was the end of it. No, it's not the end of it. I'm just kidding. I wanted to punish him a little bit. I just wanted him to know that was a very wrong thing to do. So I spoke to the manager of the hotel. I spoke to the manager of the hotel in the lobby, and I told her what happened, and I told her what I did, and her face lit up, okay? She was a young woman in the hotel uniform, which was like a skirt suit, and she was actually rocking it very well, despite the fact that it was a hotel uniform, and she said, I love what you did. I wish I could do that. And she was like totally on board. And then I felt like we were becoming friends, and I go, okay, amazing. Can you ban him from the lounge? And she goes, okay, no. She didn't ban him from the lounge. And I said, well, he kind of like ruined my time at the lounge, and she knew that I had paid an extra fee to be in the lounge, so she took that off for the day, which is fine, but I would have rather paid extra and have him banned, but he was not banned. So that's the end of the story. No, it's not actually. That's not the end of the story. The next morning, I go back to the lounge because I don't care. I'm going to go back. And I was hoping they'd have mini samosa for breakfast, but no. But they had a good breakfast buffet. So I went and I walk in and I see him there. I see him sitting at a table again with his partner. He kind of looked over to me. I'm 5% convinced that he just kind of looked over and kind of smiled, but he didn't actually do anything to overtly acknowledge me or apologize. So I put my stuff down at the table, and then I had to walk by him to the breakfast buffet. And I don't think this was premeditated, but I patted the back of the chair he was sitting on very, very aggressively, and I bent down and I said into his ear sternly, "Are we gonna behave today?" And then I just went about my morning having a beautiful breakfast. And that is the very end. Now, I have some thoughts about this. This man didn't look fancy in that he was dressed up or anything, but he looked like someone who might be rich, but also wears a button-up top and jeans. So much so, and like, again, we were there for a comedy festival, that I texted his picture and the whole story to a bunch of other comedian friends there, just to say, hey, I just gave this guy a really hard time. Is this somebody important? And then one of the comics wrote back and said, this is Canadian entertainment. Nobody is important. But this is the thing. He actually looked like he would be a friendly old guy. He literally looked like he would be the cross breed of Bernie Sanders and Warren Buffett. And I like both of those people very, very much. He looked exactly like their love child, if that was biologically possible. But then he did this like silly little microaggression on me, which women will understand, being shushed by a man. I even said to the man who worked for the I said, do you think he would have done that if I was a man? And he said, absolutely not. He knew that wouldn't have happened. There are some men who think they should be able to dictate how other people behave, especially women. I cannot believe this man thought it was appropriate to, and let me describe that. What is this hand signal called? It looks like, I'm playing hand puppets, but literally doing like a chicken head and just shushing me with his hands and his mouth at the same time. And after he talked to the concierge on his way out, he just did a little dance. He literally stepped up on his toes and he did a 360 dance, as if to suggest with his body that, hey, this is cool, right? This is fun. This is nothing. And then he went down the elevator. And I remember this so vividly because I was recording a video of this, not to do anything other than to show my friends and tell them all about this. Also, I was recording all of this to send to my friends, which I knew I would do immediately, and I did. You can also see his little dance. I've made a GIF of it on my website, on my little write-up. This is not unlike many other things that have happened to me and a lot of women who come across men who think the world should operate in the ways that they think it should, or that people should behave in ways that are convenient to them. I also think the matter of speaking on the phone in public is one that people have different positions about. I myself know that I get very irked when somebody is speaking on speakerphone in public, whether they're on the street or even, in an enclosed area like a hotel lounge or an airport lounge. Have I ever done anything about it? No, and not because I don't like confrontation, but because I think the rules are a little gray, and I also have the ability to move. But I will say about speaking on the phone when you have your AirPods in, I think that's completely fine, because I think that is no different than speaking to someone who's actually there. In fact, it is half the noise as being in an in-person conversation with someone who's right in front of you. When I'm on the phone, I'm no louder than I am if someone's sitting right across from me. It should be half the burden of the other person in the lounge who doesn't want to listen to someone else's voice because they're only hearing half of a conversation, a partial conversation, and maybe that is what makes it a little bit more annoying to someone, like not being able to properly listen in or know what the other side is saying. I don't know. Either way, maybe airport lounges and hotel lounges should have signs that say people are allowed to be on the phone, even if they're women. Anyways, I do almost for sure, like 100% sure, know that this was because I was a woman, because there's no way he would have shushed out of his mouth, and with his little duck hand, there's no way he would have shushed another rich-looking old white man like himself. There's no way he would have shushed a man of any race, especially if he was big and muscular, because that man would destroy this old man and throw him out of the window. No, and this is the thing that makes it a microaggression, and it is my radar of that assessment that made me clap back at this man pretty quickly. I also think that the reason he got up and made a big show out of it, and why he got so offended that I didn't automatically comply with him, is because I was a woman. When I told him not to talk to me like that, he got offended again, and he really wanted to bring the authorities into it. The authorities didn't agree with him, so that was probably not his best day, but I really enjoyed it. Maybe society needs some better rules or conventions around speaking on the phone in public. You know how there's signs at a public pool or a gym that suggest to people what normal behavior is? They look like eye tests, right? At the gym, it'll be like, no going barefoot. There is a lady at our gym who goes barefoot. Ugh, it's so disgusting. No going barefoot. Don't drop your weights. No children under 12 or something like that. Or at the pool, no running. Don't shit in the pool. What would I have done differently? I probably would have done nothing differently. I mean, I could have gone up to him on that day or the morning after and demanded an apology, but I don't think I need an apology from him. I do think that I did lean in the second day, and maybe he would have apologized, except I went over and I aggressively patted his chair and told him to behave, which was kind of fun, I have to say. I'm also generally really averse to anyone who thinks they can police other people in public, whether it comes to noise or behavior or anything, unless it's like this giant thing, like, sir, please don't shit on the common room table. Especially if it's not something that's harming you. He couldn't really hear me well. I wasn't swearing. I wasn't screaming or anything. He could have just left it. But he wanted to make a point to me that day that he could control my volume, and didn't let him do it. Yeah. And I think maybe that man learned a lesson that day that you can't just like have a little tantrum when somebody is acting in ways that you don't like, and you can't always have your way. And the only thing I regret is that he did not get banned from the lounge. That would have been really nice. I just really wanted him to learn a lesson. And I think he learned a little bit of a lesson. I don't know if I bet he would think twice and maybe 3 times if he ever tried to shush a woman again. I hope so. I bet he's the kind of man that like in his job, he's used to people just like complying with what he says or laughing at his stupid jokes. I bet 9 out of 10 times when he's shushed people in the past, they've probably done it or said sorry, because a lot of people are just like that, and they don't cause trouble back, which is what I do a lot of the times. And maybe that's a lot on me, but it doesn't take a lot out of me, actually. I quite enjoyed that. If that man is listening, I don't know your name, sir. I assume maybe you looked a little bit like a Larry or a Ralph. So Ralph, if you are listening, and I'm sure as shit you are not, the next time you encounter a woman somewhere and she's doing things you don't like talking or existing or anything else that's annoying to you, just chill out. Take a deep breath and simply shh. I'm doing the hand thing. Shh. Thanks for listening to Bothered, my new little storytelling podcast about being bothered. If you want to read the blog version with pictures and juicy videos, go to the blog, www.juliekimcomedy.com/podcast. I'm on tour, Kelowna, Kamloops this weekend, followed by Whistler, Houston, Ottawa, Toronto, London, San Francisco, and much more. Check out the dates at juliekimcomedy.com. Shout out to Logitech for the sweet gear to make this all possible. Thanks, and tune in next week.